Now I'm joined by Brian Becker from Washington via Skype. He's a policy analyst on U.S. DPRK relations and has been to the DPRK many times. Brian, welcome back to our show.
Thank you.
According to a Norway-based nuclear monitor group, NORSAR, the device that was detonated was more than 8 times more powerful than the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. Would that be conceivable? Help us understand the scope of this latest test.
Yes, I think it's conceivable, and I think the DPRK has been very clear that it's developing an indigenous nuclear weapons and missile technology program so that it's not reliant on any other country. Thus, the concerted efforts to impose sanctions over and over again and additional draconian economic penalties on North Korea doesn't really have an impact insofar as this government, the government in the DPRK, believes that its nuclear capacity is a fundamental existential part of its own national security, since it's constantly being reminded by the United States, the largest military power in the world, that the United States intends to carry out regime change and carries out war exercises simulating the destruction of North Korea. So I don't think economic sanctions are going to do the trick. North Korea feels its national security, its existence hangs in the balance.
Certainly external threats there, but the DPRK said they could make hydrogen bombs small enough to be launched from an ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. Is that part of their strategic deterrent measures so they can get more from a potential negotiation with Washington?
Well, at least it's part of their effort to carry out what they believe to be a comprehensive national security program. We know at the end of the Korean War in 1953, the chairman and all the chiefs of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pentagon agreed that they would begin dropping nuclear bombs on North Korea and also on China unless an armistice was signed ending the Korean War, which happened a few months later. North Korea also knows that the U.S. has an immense nuclear capability. It has 5,000 operational nuclear weapons. It's carried out more than 1,000 nuclear tests. It's the only country that has actually used nuclear weapons. And so the DPRK now feels that the only way they can truly, genuinely defend their country is to let the United States know that they can hit back, that they also have a nuclear deterrent capable of hitting the United States. The real solution here lies not in war or missiles or nuclear tests. It lies in a new path to have negotiations, especially between the U.S. and North Korea, to end the tensions, to begin the normalization of relations, to end the Korean War once and for all.
But it looks like President Trump is not quite ready for talks. He just tweeted yesterday and today that he would stop trade with all countries who trade with the DPRK. That would include China. What would that do? What consequences would that have?
Yeah, you can't really make heads or tails out of what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, if he were to cut off all trade with countries that do trade with DPRK, for instance, the People's Republic of China, the United States imports $463 billion worth of products every year. And of course, American corporations both export and have direct foreign investment in China. That would be a catastrophe for the U.S. economy. That's not a realistic threat. But that's the thing about Donald Trump. He's constantly threatening, bluster and bluff. You never know what his bottom line is.
President Trump also said that the DPRK's test is an embarrassment, quote unquote, to China. Previously, President Trump said China, quote unquote, did nothing to stop the North Korean belligerence and the tests. What is the purpose of President Trump tweeting that way?
I don't really know. I think Donald Trump has had a lifetime of being the sole head of a small real estate company where he's the sole sort of dictator. So he believes when he makes utterances or tweets that everyone shakes and trembles in fear. But obviously, that's not the way world politics works. All he does is provoke other countries, not really know what to make of U.S. policy, not to know whether his tweets really represent the U.S. foreign policy. Frankly, I don't think they do. I think it's just Donald Trump being Donald Trump. Really, the other people in the cabinet, the people who are really running the U.S. government, I don't think that's Donald Trump. They need to come to a conclusion that there must be another way, go back to the negotiating table with the DPRK.
Certainly, there's a lot to expect on whether or not they can go back to the negotiating table. Brian Becker, thank you for your time on Sunday.
Thank you.